Hi, and welcome to the Stop Chasing Skinny podcast, where every single Tuesday we interview a new guest to talk about topics to help you craft your own fit life. The title Stop Chasing Skinny comes from my own personal tagline of life begins when you stop chasing skinny. You see, I spent many years running many miles, taking many classes, and trying many diets, but none of those worked. So finally, I got down to the business of understanding what really matters. And it's not just about how much exercise you can do or how little you can eat. It's everything else that goes into it. So I created this podcast to help you so you can craft your own fit life. Every single Tuesday, you can listen to an interview with a guest, and now every Friday, you can listen to me a second time, where I take questions you have sent to me, and I spend about 15 minutes answering them. You can even feed your brain this nourishing brain food by listening while you're cooking, commuting, cleaning, walking the dog, or just about anything else, because that is how we craft a fit life. So let's get on with the show. And today's podcast episode is with the inventor of the Bosu ball, David Weck. He does a whole lot more than just the Bosu ball, but that seems to be the piece of equipment that everybody knows about. I happened to be interviewed with David on another show a few weeks ago on a local San Diego ESPN radio station. And so that's how we met. And we kept talking about running and all of the different benefits to running and how a lot of people are doing it wrong. I talked about how I had injured myself through running, just probably improper form now that I've talked to him. So I had to have him on the show so he could talk to us about what we should do, what we shouldn't do. And he has a really cool clinic coming up for anybody that wants to attend. So welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being on.
Hi, Stephanie. And for anybody who doesn't know Bosu ball, it's the blue half ball that you see in most of the gyms.
Yeah, yes. That, you can flip it upside down. You can stand on it. It's the most amazing piece of equipment, I have to say.
Thank you.
Yeah, super cool. So tell us about your background with running, how you became so passionate about this, because we're going to really get into the form part of it and how we can run efficiently.
All right, so I grew up an athlete, and one of my quests during that competitive phase in athleticism, high school and college, I was always seeking to run faster, because the faster you are in the sport of football and track, the better you are. And so I was on that quest since, preteen to run faster. So I studied everything under the book, learned everything about conventional wisdom, and then after inventing the Bosu ball, it provided me some unique opportunities, a lot of time and resources to explore it in many ways, the ability to work with some of the world's best, including the world's second fastest man ever, working with people who can't even walk and regaining the ability to walk. So I study gait, and gait is walking, gait is running, and I've arrived at certain insight that actually cuts against conventional wisdom, because it is the biomechanics that one must do to obey the law, as I say. So the law is gravity and biomechanics to fight that force most efficiently, and conventional wisdom doesn't give you the correct or ideal instruction and cueing to do that best. So there are certain rules that exist now that don't obey the law, and the law supersedes the rules. So you can break the rules when you understand the law, and that's what I teach, and the clock is the judge. Ultimately, my opinion ultimately doesn't matter. Neither does an expert's opinion. It doesn't matter if the clock determines the reality of who is faster. Well, then now we know what is optimal and correct. And so that's the results that we achieve. We get better results than we've ever gotten, and better compared to the conventional training. And like I said, the clock, there's two things that don't lie. The videotape analysis in slow motion doesn't lie. It always tells the truth. And the clock never lies. The clock tells you the truth about what is super.
That's awesome. So yeah, you're so right. We like to put a lot of emotional judgment into all of this, but really it is science, and that's what it comes down to. A lot of people have found me because I talk about how I used to run mile after mile. I was also trying to out-train a bad diet, so that never works. But I was running a bunch of miles, and my form really wasn't that good because I ended up sustaining a lot of overuse injuries. I wasn't actually getting stronger. I was just increasing my imbalances in my body because I was more just kind of shuffling along rather than actually running. So what are some things that we do as runners? So like beginner, you're like, all right, so I got some shoes. I want to go get in shape. I'm going to go out and run. What is it that we're doing that could hurt ourselves that we don't realize, like in this form of running?
Everything boils down to your alignment and your balance. So you have to have the proper alignment to have the optimal balance, and that's the form of strength that you need.
Okay.
And so unless you have that optimal alignment, you now by definition have to compensate for the misalignment. And it's that compensation that creates the repetitive stress injuries, because the parts of your body that should be more relaxed are not as relaxed. They're more tension, and the joints are under greater strain because it's not lined up, as it were. So a beginning runner, you have several things working against you, is that many of the people around you don't do it well either. So you don't have a good model for what to do. If you go to a running clinic, for example, or most of them as they exist today, you will be given instructions such as fall forward, pull with your hamstrings. These are cues that work directly against you. Keep your head and shoulders nice and level and square. These are cues that if you succeed with your running, you are not succeeding because of these cues, you're succeeding in spite of these cues. Now, elite runners and the fastest runners, they will do the proper biomechanics, but nobody is optimized, and because it hasn't been identified what these optimal cues are, there's not the proper training toward the cue. So if your training misses the mark, and especially if you're training fall forward or pull with hamstring, these things work directly against you. They'll increase the metabolic load for any speed that you're running. They'll increase the repetitive stress on the body. So in a sense, you're running slower with greater chance of injury when you don't understand the cueing, and your training by definition is missing the mark. So if you succeed with that and you hit your mark, you miss the target. And so what you need is the knowledge of the bullseye, knowledge of balance, knowledge of how to develop the strength with the balance. Because strength without balance is problematic. Strength in balance is exactly what you want. And a lot of runners who especially log a lot of miles have bone issues. So their bones become depleted of calcium and more brittle.
Okay.
So we have bone density loss because you're not in alignment. When you get in alignment, you're actually able to hit the ground harder, which makes you faster with less wear and tear on the body. So if your running instruction is saying, run really softly, it's because they don't understand the alignment. When you have the alignment, now the impact forces are productive, and those impact forces are generative in terms of increasing bone density. Because now you're getting the proper ratio of the structural components, which are the bones, and then the suspensional components, which are the muscles, the tendons, the ligaments, and the fascia that unites the whole body. And it's a tensional balance between the rigid elements, which are the bones, and the softer elements, which is the muscles and connective tissue and fascia. When that has its suspensional or tensional balance, now both structures are fortified because you're not compensating out of balance, where you're getting a pull on the bone that doesn't yield the productivity, which is pulling it out of the alignment. So you get the soft tissue issues, and then the bone isn't fortified either.
Okay.
So myriad problems occur when you don't have that optimal alignment. And because it's not and it's literally not known. Yeah. I've been using a cue for years, and it was only relatively recently that the insight from that cue was fully realized. And then the training techniques to execute the cue all of a sudden emerged and became crystal clear. And you can use various modalities, from a kettlebell to dumbbells to elastic tubing to the Bosu ball to a new product that we have called the RMT Club. So once you understand the principles, now you can really make everything productive according to those principles. And now you can make subtle shifts in the way that you're training with body weight even, or whatever modality, whatever product, whatever tool, and you can hone in your training to make it productive for more efficient gait. Better running, better walking. And when you have that, you have truly fortified the foundation for everything else. So no matter what other sport or activity you're doing, when you enhance the way that you run and the way that you walk, and it goes in that order. So running your fastest, regardless of what your objective is in fitness and health or sports, even if you don't want to compete, you have to learn how to run your fastest, because that's what creates the symmetry, the balance, the strength that is most productive for harnessing your total body for whatever activity, including walking. So you create more reserve for everything else by running your fastest. It's the most important objective to own, even if you don't want to run.
Right.
If you ever have to, well, now you're fundamentally better at it, and that now allows you to work backward with more reserve for everything else. So you can walk with greater efficiency. And if you're taking 5,000 to 10,000 steps every day, think of the repetitive stress and wear and tear on the body. 80% of people will experience significant back pain that they need to find some remedy for. It's not just a little pain, it's a lot of pain. 80% of people.
That's crazy.
80% of runners in any given year are injured or dealing with some stressful injury. 80%.
And that's not because they're running, it's because they're not running properly.
It's possible to get hurt in any circumstance. Maybe you hit a divot in the ground or whatever the circumstance may be, but your chances of injury they drop exponentially if you find the proper alignment. Wow. It's everything.
That is so interesting, because people think that I hate running. I don't hate running. I just don't think that running, a bunch of miles without good form at some slow pace is really going to get you to where you want to be. So I don't hate running. This is awesome, because you'll see this is the part of running I love, is to figure out how to do it better, how to do it more efficiently, and how to make it work for you. And so with that, we're going to take a really quick break, and we'll be right back. Have you signed up for the 10-Day Jumpstart program yet? It's free. The SK Fit Life 10-Day Jumpstart program is 10 days of emailed lessons straight in your inbox. All of my best lessons straight to you for free. Go to www.skfitlife.com/free10day. That's FREE10DAY. See you there. And welcome back. Okay, so we keep talking about the different cues and things like that. So could you go over some of those cues again real quick of what we've been listening to, what we've been looking for, and maybe what's wrong with those? And we'll talk about the running clinic that you have coming up too.
Yeah, the next running clinic that we have coming up is January 7th, 2017. Okay. And it's open for anybody. Don't even need to be a runner. It's fantastic for personal trainers.
Awesome.
It's fantastic for anyone who's looking to fortify the foundation for everything else that they do. And of course, runners. Any distance, any age, any ability. And this running clinic is special compared to every other one that we've conducted, because this one we have this new insight that has changed the way that we do things, and we have the empirical evidence that it makes people faster.
That's awesome.
we've trained runners down from, taking 0.4 of a second off a sprint from a highly trained runner to take them down in time significantly. And now with this new insight, we've gone down even lower.
Wow.
So we've taken more time off, and so we have the evidence that it works.
Yeah.
So this running clinic is very special. We'll have two special guests there. One is an elite ultra marathon runner.
Okay.
And who will speak to and testify to the benefits of this technique. And the other one is a master's class sprinter, former NFL athlete, who now he's 60 years old. He now races in master's track, And he's going to come to this clinic as well and share his insights and his experience with WEC method running.
Yeah.
So it's a great opportunity. Now, to answer your question about the cueing, there is one cue that reigns supreme over all other cues. If you don't execute this one cue, there is nothing you can do to make up for the deficiency. Okay? It's the single most important cue that a runner must do. It's the law, not a rule, but the law. And this cue is the simple phrase, head over foot. Head over foot. You have to land at the moment of maximum impact, and you can chart that maximum impact on a force plate. At that moment of maximum, you need to have your head over your foot. And most runners don't do this, and the elite runners all do this. Doesn't matter, the sprinters and the distance runners, they all do it. But because it's not understood that this is the absolute number one cue, they're not training for it. So it's sub-optimized, and even the elite runners, when you analyze the slow motion footage, they do it, they miss it, they do it, they miss it. And every time you miss it, the next step is not as productive. The next step has to catch up for the fault of the previous step.
Wow.
So what you have to do is you've got to string them together. And the cue fall forward is one of the worst cues that you can ever get and practice in running. It is one of the worst cues that you can get and practice, because running is not falling. Running is moving from one balanced position on one leg to another balanced position on the other leg, and at no point are you falling where you have to catch yourself.
Yeah, and I would think that would like send a lot more impact, like straight up your leg too. If your body's leaning over if you're leaning forward, like you're trying to fall, and every step, I mean, I feel like that would like make you way off balance. And
well, what happens is the impact forces are not absorbed and transmitted, and it's really a question of suspension and transmission.
Okay.
So think of a vehicle.
Yep.
You need the suspension, and then you need the transmission. You need to transmit the force, the energy, that engine, and you need to transmit it through the body. And the only way it transmits cleanly and most productively is when there's balance. And so if you're intentionally trying to put yourself out of balance by falling forward and catch yourself, those forces aren't being transmitted optimally. And that affects the suspension system. It wears out the suspension because now the force isn't productive. The force is compensatory. The force is making up for the alignment that is not there. And so you don't get the greatest exchange of energy with the least amount of bleed or leakage, so that you can't put force to and from the ground as efficiently, and that causes you run slower, and you have repetitive stress that otherwise wouldn't be there. So that is head over foot is the number one cue that reigns supreme. If you don't do it, you're not running your best, and it's balance. And if you watch a distance runner run, their head actually goes up as they're leaving their foot. Oh. So the head actually rises in elevation in between steps when you're in flight phase, as they say. When both feet are off the ground, your head is moving up. So how is your head moving up falling?
Right. That doesn't make any sense.
It's not falling. And consider this. Gravity's always on. So in that sense, every single thing on this earth is always falling all the time.
Yeah.
And gravity doesn't care what your base of support is. Gravity doesn't care if your base of support is your foot or your face. Gravity's not going to turn off, right? So you're falling whether you are supporting yourself with good balance in an upright position or not.
Yeah.
And so we think you can think of falling in two ways. Falling is falling as we all think of it, but falling is also the force of gravity just doing its job. Yeah. And you're either good at the battle, the fight with gravity, or you're not.
Yeah.
And the better you are with it, the better every single body function will function. And I'm talking endocrine system, metabolic system, every single system. If you have the proper biomechanics, and this is why the Chinese and the Tai Chi and the the Qigong and the deep meditation, what are they doing? They're marrying this physical balance with this mental emotional balance. Yeah. And they believe that you need harmony across the board. You need harmony in a physical sense to achieve the maximum harmony in an emotional, spiritual sense even.
Yeah.
So it's the most profound thing that you have, and it's always on, and it'll never give you a break, right? Whether it's your foot or your face, doesn't matter. Gravity's going to say, you know what? I'm going to pull you down, and whatever stops you is what's stopping you. I don't care about that.
Wow. Oh, that's so interesting. It's so like perfect timing too, because I just interviewed somebody about acupuncture and Chinese medicine and the Oriental medicine and talking about mind, body, spirit and how it brings it all together. So it's really cool that even within physical activity, like you can, people have been doing this for centuries, is to pull it all together.
It's one of the sources and resources that I've had the privilege to study. So I went to Chinese acupuncture school.
Oh, okay.
And I've studied Tai Chi for years and years and years.
Yeah.
So all of the distillation of what Weck method running is comes from sources that are far and wide, because there's something to be learned from those things that are centuries old.
Yeah.
There's a wisdom there. There's a through line there that is the truth. And when you're able to extract and distill it down for a different functional purpose, the truth still is the truth. There's a thread, a through line that goes where the truth obeys the law.
Yeah.
So whatever the rules are, doesn't matter what the rule is. If the rule doesn't obey the law, the rule must be broken.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh. All right. Well, that's more than I'm just going to go put my running shoes on. That's incredible.
Well,
really
what's wonderful about it is once you learn it, and there's other techniques now that are underneath head over foot. So what we focus on with Weck method running is your head, your feet, your hands, and then your center.
Okay.
So it's in that order. We want to understand the head over foot, and then we want to understand how that makes it happen, the best exchange through the foot, and then the hands. The hands and the arms are critical, and understanding the fundamental difference and similarities between distance running and sprinting. There are fundamental differences and fundamental similarities that you must understand to optimize both distance and sprinting.
So can we talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Two sides of the same coin.
Because I see a lot of people will run with their arms basically across their chest, and like almost their upper body is going back and forth, left and right. Like the momentum is like it's all over the place.
Well, here's the thing: is that is actually not a bad thing, provided that it is married with movement in the other plane called the frontal plane.
Okay.
So the frontal plane would be movement like jumping jacks.
Yep.
That's where it's going across the center line, where it's from left to right.
Okay.
Now the transverse plane, that's the rotational plane, the back and forth rotation. Those two planes have to be perfectly integrated and balanced. And the way that running is currently taught is they're focusing on the transverse plane without the correct understanding of what must happen in that frontal plane.
Okay.
And it's not a linear equation. So the arms will cut to the center line. The arms will not go straight ahead with efficiency. The arms have to cut to the center line, and there's a certain individualization of what's going to happen with the hands and the arms. And it has to do with the counterbalancing effect. We call your legs springs and your arms wings.
Okay.
And basically what you will do is you can't rotate too far, but you must rotate.
Okay.
And that rotation must be combined with that frontal plane movement to give it the power and the efficiency so that it's safe on the spine, and so you're harnessing the full power and not sacrificing power and technique that's going to eventually end up hurting you through repetitive stress.
Okay.
So It's not necessarily wrong if the hand crosses the center line slightly.
Yep.
Some runners do it, some runners don't, but it's a necessity that everybody has to come toward the center.
Okay. Which
many running instruction doesn't tell you that. They say 90 degrees at the elbows and churn them back and forth.
Yeah.
100% wrong.
Wow. Yeah, who knew there could be so many technique things in running, right? Because like it's something that you can just naturally do. So you think that like nature takes care of you and just has you do it the way that it should be done. But
and that is and that's what happens for some.
Yeah.
So the elite runner is obeying the law.
Okay.
Because their body intuitively, naturally feels the speed and the strength and the power of that efficiency, so they do it.
Yeah.
Now, because it's not taught, you can't align the training with the technique. If you don't know what the factors are, what the causes are underneath what's going on, then there's no way to enhance it.
Yeah.
And so if you're doing training that distracts from that fundamental purpose, you're in a sense wasting some effort in that process. And you're developing strength not in accord with the fundamental balance that is necessary. So unless you understand head over foot and exactly how to train it, it's 100% precision with that reality as your first and foremost goal. If you're not achieving that, you can't make up for the deficiency. So now what happens is you're able, and with WEC Method Running, we gear all of your training to getting better at the technique and getting stronger and more balanced with the technique. So you have the alignment, but then you're training all of your strength and your balance to go in accord with that alignment. And that's why we're able to get better results with people who are already doing it.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing it, I watched the marathon. Okay, New York City Marathon was this past weekend, and I watched it. And when the pack was 15 people in the beginning with the men, I picked the winner based on his technique, and I picked the first people to drop out based on their technique.
Really?
I saw the way they were running, and I said, that guy cannot keep up with the pack because he's not efficient, and that guy right there is doing it the best, and therefore I'm putting my chips on the table for him.
Wow.
And with the women, same story with the women. I narrowed it down to 2 in the beginning when there was a pack. So I'm not picking out of 2 or 3. I'm picking out of a pack. I picked the ones that were going to drop out, and I picked the winners. And with the women, I narrowed it down to 2 before the 1 became obvious.
Okay.
But that's how profound this technique is.
Wow. Oh, that is incredible. I mean, I have to wrap it up for this episode, but I want people to be able to attend if they want to. I already had friends who said that they had signed up for it. I'm going to include all of the information for the clinic that's coming up in the show notes so you can access those. So thank you so much for talking to us today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. It's a wonderful opportunity to spread the message. And here is the promise with the clinic. In 6 hours, you will become a fundamentally better runner and put you on the path to being better and better for the rest of your life. In 6 hours, you will achieve that.
Wow.
So it's transformative on the very first day.
Yeah.
And whether you're a runner or not, it's going to increase your efficiency to move on this earth, which has the most profound benefit that you can imagine. So personal trainers are welcome. If you want to provide value to your clients, learn the fundamental functional movement, which is gait, walking and running.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. And today's show is sponsored by Memer Media Group. Memer Media Group is passionate about helping professionals in the fitness industry expand their influence and businesses beyond the confines of their local community. For the very first time in history, health, wellness, and fitness coaches can make a positive impact and earn an income from anywhere in the world. Check out Memer Media Group at memermediagroup.com. MEEMUR Media Group.